Before discussing rotation in more general sense, right? So far we discussed rotation only in case of fixed axis problems where the axis of rotation is fixed, or rather orientation of the axis of rotation was fixed. So we did consider translation of this axis. Now we can generalize that, and we will generalize that. However, before moving on to that, let me cover quickly this topic on motion under central force. So if we have a central force and an object is moving under the influence of that central force, because this particular problem, motion under central force, is it's a subset of the rotational motion that we just discussed in the previous week. Okay? And we will see that a lot of the results that we derive there can be directly applied there, and more importantly, it gives us the description of two body systems which are moving under such forces. For example, under gravitational forces, so that way it can help us in deriving the orbits of planets, right, or the path of planets or other heavenly bodies in the universe, right. Similarly, the approach can also be extended in the classical sense to describe scattering between ions, right, the charged particles, right? Because both these forces, the gravitational force and the electrostatic force, both of these are central in nature. Both actually go as, or they have the exact same form, 1 over r square, right? And the sign in front of this depends on the nature of the force. So for gravitation, it's always attractive. In case of electrostatic, it could be attractive or repulsive depending on the charges or the particles that are participating. Okay, so anyway, so what we start with is, let's start with two body system. And we are doing this again because the forces, or the forces that we are going to consider, particularly the gravitational interaction, is a two body force, right? So it doesn't matter how many bodies are interacting. They are interacting with each other under the influence of a two-body force, right? And that is why we can simplify the problem of multiple bodies into a system of two-body systems, and then combining effect altogether. Okay. So anyway, so let's take, we have a two-body system, and in our x, y, z coordinate system, we can represent it z, x, y. And let us say I have a mass here and a mass at some location. With respect to some arbitrary origin O, I can describe position vectors r1 and r2 for these masses. And let us also say that this is m1 and this is m2. So two masses, and now they are interacting with the gravitational interaction. So we know that there is a force between these two, right? So starting with the center of mass, I can also draw a position vector, which is the relative position vector, right? And let me now call it r12, right? And if we draw it this way, then we can also write down r12 is r1 minus r2, right? So this is just the system that we are considering, and now we can describe unit vector r12, right, in the direction of, or describe the direction of this relative position vector between these two masses, and we know that the force acts along this unit vector. So I'll call this force as Fr, the force of gravity, right, and it's acting between these two masses. So mass m1 pulls mass m2 towards it, mass m2 pulls m1 towards it, right? And now what I can do is I can write down the equation of motion for these two masses. So general equation of motion with respect to any origin or arbitrarily chosen origin can be written as this. So you can say equation of motion. So m1 r1 double dot, right, is nothing but the force in this direction, right? And since the force is two body, I can right away write down the equation of motion for the second mass m2 with the position coordinate r2 as because again there is a mutual attractive force here, so the force on each of them is simply opposite of the other, right? So I can write them like this, and now what I can do is I can say that let me define. So let's say R is the center of mass of the system. Right? So if I say R is the center of mass of the system, then where is R? R is somewhere here. Right? Of course, it depends on the mass and the position vector. So R is then M1 R1. However, let's say this is my R and then this is my center of mass. Right? So for this system, let's say this is center of mass. So I can also define the coordinates for M1 and M2 in terms of the center of mass. Right? So if I do that, then basically what I'll get is I'll get a system like this. Let us say M2, M1. This is the center of mass, and then I can define this coordinate as R1 prime and this coordinate as R2 prime. And from our discussion on center of mass, we know how to connect this R1 prime and R2 prime with to the position vectors R1 and R2, right? So we can change or we can define the center of mass coordinate and then change our origin there to simplify the problem, right? So and here, just for the sake of completeness, R is defined as M1 R1 plus M2 R2 upon M1 plus M2, right? So this is my center of mass. Okay, now we look at the property of the system in the sense that first of all what we are saying is there are no external forces on the system, right? So the two bodies are interacting under mutual attraction, or whatever is the nature of force within this, but other than that there is no external force on the system, right? If that is the case, then so no external force, right? What this implies is that there is no acceleration of the center of mass, right? We discussed this earlier in case of translation motion, that the external force can be taken as if it's applied on a single point, which is described as center of mass. So no external force, that means the acceleration of the center of mass is going to be 0. Right? I can also say, or we can also simplify the problem by saying that let's not look at the system, right, about an arbitrary origin. Let us say that the center of mass is my origin. Right? So shift O to R. Right? So basically this becomes my new origin, or this becomes my new origin. Right? Okay. And we can also say, or we can also take, so this is all we are doing this because the initial conditions are under our control, the way we want to look at the system. So let's shift the origin to R and say that R is stationary in the frame of reference, right? So it's an inertial frame of reference with, so it can have a constant velocity, it doesn't matter, right? However, we are saying that this is my origin now, and let's say that the origin also does not translate. Right? So R dot is 0. R dot is 0 because there is no external force. Right? And if this is the scenario, then now what I can do is I can write down these equations in a slightly different form. So starting from here now, I can write down this relative position coordinate or the vector, which again is the same, right? So the length does not change. This is my R12. So anyway, R12, I can differentiate it with respect to time once. It will give me the velocity of the relative position, relative distance between these two, the relative vector, position vector, and I can differentiate again to get the acceleration of the relative position vector. So let's do that. And looking at these conditions, what I can write down is, for this system, R12 double dot is simply R1 double dot minus R2 double dot. Okay, and if this is the case, then now taking R1 double dot and R2 double dot from here, we can write this down as 1 over M1 plus 1 over M2 f of R R12 cap. Right? Rearrange it slightly, we can write this down as M1 M2 over M1 plus M2 R12 double dot is equal to f of r R12 cap. And now you can identify this equation, right? It looks like MA, F force equal to MA, because now you have some mass term here. Acceleration is equal to force and in the direction of the relative position vector, right? So now this is like mx double dot equal to fx, right? So one-dimensional motion. So effectively what we have done is we have reduced this problem of two body systems moving in xyz coordinate as a simple f equal to ma kind of equation, right? And now so here again we can do a slight rearrangement. And we can look at this term, define this term as mu R12 is equal to f of r R12 cap. So then this becomes my equation of motion, where mu is then known as reduced mass of the two-body system. Of this two-body system, and the way now if you look at this and I want to let's say show this on that xyz coordinate, right? Then what I can then the way I look at it is I have this z x y. Now what I have done is I have changed my origin. So this is my center of mass of the system, right? Of the two-body system. And the equation of motion is for a particle of mass mu, which is reduced mass obtained from mass m1 and m2, moving in a force Fr, right, which is central force, again in this particular case directed towards the origin, if it's attractive force, right, and the force in the same direction as the position vector of this mass mu in this frame. So this will be then my R12, this will be mu, and this will be the, so this becomes a single, so the motion of a single particle, right, about an origin under influence of this force, where f of r is again in this same direction. Okay. So this is how we can reduce this two-body problem into a single body problem, and now we can solve for it. And of course what we know is how to get back. So if I solve for this, if I get R12, I can also write down, if I obtain R12, then I can also obtain R1 and R2 from this, because R1 is nothing but R plus M2 over M1 plus M2, R12, and R2 is R minus M1 upon M1 plus M2, R12, right? So first of all, reducing a two-body problem, because it's under the influence of two-body forces, as motion of a single particle under a central force directed towards origin, and then we can always get back motion of the individual particles, right? Okay. So with this, now we can move on and try to solve for let's say the motion of planets about sun, or planets about each other, or two stars, and things like that. Okay. Now, before we do that, what we'll do is, let us also try to look at some aspects, some important aspects of central force. So, for example, one aspect of central force, or one important property of the central force that we know of, and we use that in our work energy relation, is that central forces are always conservative, so we can always associate a potentiality function with those, right? There are other peculiarities when the motion is only under a central force, right? One of them is the torque on the system is zero, right? And it's rather easy to see this because since the force, the applied force is always pointing in the direction of the unit vector, of the position unit vector, then r cross f is going to be 0, right? So r cross f is simply rf sin theta, and if f is pointing in the direction of the position vector, then r cross f is going to be equal to 0. So torque is 0. If torque is 0, that means dl over dt is equal to 0, right? And that means we have conservation of angular momentum, right? And which basically implies L is constant. So for motion under central force, the angular momentum or total angular momentum remains a conserved quantity, remains constant, right? And what is this angular momentum? So now you will see the problem that we are now describing is I have an origin O, I have some mass m, and it's going about in some rotational motion about this origin, right? L is constant. We have solved this problem, right? We have solved this kind of problem. So if you look, this looks something like the conical pendulum when we analyze it in that circular plane, right? So this also tells us that we will basically have the L is basically having the Lz component, right? So that's where we connect it to the fixed axis rotation, and the value of Lz is m r square omega, right? Where omega is the constant. So d theta over dt is constant, and in our case, this is same as mu r square omega, right? So torque is 0 for motion under central force. The total angular momentum of the system is going to remain conserved, remain constant, and it's going to be equal to this, right? Okay. Now with this information, right, we can try to write down the general equation of motion. Another property that I'll simply mention here, right, and leave it for you as an exercise, that we can prove one of Kepler's laws, right, that when the planets are going around the sun, or when the satellites are going around the planets, they sweep out equal area in equal time, right? So this was the empirical law given by Kepler after looking at the data, right? However, we can prove this just by looking at the properties of the system. So dA by dt is a constant, right? And it's exercise for you to apply your knowledge of this fixed axis rotation to prove this, right? In case of a central force, application of central force, right? Okay. So now what we can do is we can write down that equation of motion that we started with. So what we had was we had mu r double dot is equal to fr r cap, right? This is our equation of motion for a single particle now, which represents both the particles in terms of its reduced mass. Okay. Now that is the case, then we can write down this r double dot, right, in the generalized form. So we know what is, and again another important point that we will see, that again we can also see from here, is that since Lz is constant, right, in magnitude as well as in direction, right? So and in case of conical pendulum, we saw that Lz always points perpendicular to the plane of motion, right? So this also tells us that motion is confined in a plane. So we don't have to worry about three axis. So we don't have to worry about motion along all three coordinates. We know that it's just going to be confined under. So motion of any two objects which are under the influence of mutual forces, there are no external forces on it, the motion will be confined in a plane, right, such that the angular momentum remains conserved quantity. So motion is confined in a plane. So this sort of becomes a 2D problem, right? Motion in r theta plane or in xy plane. So now what I can do is I can write down this r double dot in terms of r theta, right? And we already in the initial lectures we derived the expression for this r double dot. So let's just write that down, and what we'll get is, so this is r double dot minus plus, you see, okay, minus r theta dot square r cap plus r theta double dot, yes, r theta double dot plus 2 r dot theta cap, right, is equal to f of r in r cap direct, right. So this is my general acceleration in r theta coordinate system and the force which is pointing in the radial direction. So from here, what you can write down is mu r double dot minus r theta dot square is equal to fr. Okay. So r cap, I'm just equating the unit vectors, and r theta dot plus 2r dot theta dot is have to be equal to 0, because on the right hand side there is no component pointing in the direction of angular unit vector theta cap, right? So this has to be 0, and in fact what you can do is you can prove this d over dt equal to constant by using this relation also. So try this. There are various ways of getting to the same point. Okay, so anyway. Now this is then my solution, okay? And what I can do is I can solve for it. So I can solve for dr over dt, or r, or how the position changes as a function of time, and so the radial position, and d theta over dt. So that's the angular position as a function of time. If I know this force Fr, or the nature of this force Fr, which we will explicitly do for gravitational interaction, where we know this goes as 1 over r square, right? So this is one way of, so this is one point where we can try to solve it exactly, right? Okay. However, what we'll do is, looking at the conservativeness of this force, we can do it in seemingly simpler way, just by considering the energy of the entire system. So let's just write that down.